gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the 2005 Kaohsiung World Pool Championships. It's Judgment Day. 64 will go and 64 will stay. Let's meet two of them. Firstly, would you please welcome, from England, the 6 times world snooker champion, the one, the only, Steve Davies! And ladies and gentlemen from the Philippines, would you please welcome Rodolfo Luat.
Here's our match commentators, Nick Holling and Jim White.
Thanks, Georgina. Yes, this is a big one for the Nugget. You don't have to tell him. Pressure is his middle name. I'll tell you what, when you've got a player that thought he was going to be putting his cue in its case and it was going to be staying there for a while, and all of a sudden he's got a second life, you know he's going to be dangerous. But Luat, well, he's one of the very experienced Filipino contingent, representing a strong army of high-class pool players from that area. And Nick, welcome up to the comm box. You're a little out of breath?
A little out of breath, but I've just realised that if I've got a choice of sitting next to Georgina or sitting next to you next time, I know which one I'm taking.
Thanks, Nick. Nice to see you here.
No, the commentary box is the place to be for this one, isn't it? What a match. And Steve Davies prowling like a tiger, just like he always does.
Well, you will see something with Davis. If he takes the bit between his teeth on this one, you'll see that pacing, looking down at the floor, gathering his concentration.
Rodolfo Luat wins the lag.
And Rodolfo takes the lag, so he's going to initiate things here. Kick off the first rack, a possible 9, race to 5. And there'll be alternating breaks. And if Davis wins, Luat's already through. He's not under the same kind of pressure Steve is. But Steve has to win this match to go through.
Done everything in the world of snooker, hasn't he? Now turning his attention to pool at the ripe old age of 47. That's his story. Had a most disastrous start. The first 2 of those matches you could put down to jet lag. He literally got off the plane and came straight here for those first 2 matches, but the 5-0 loss to Steve Higton, well, you really thought that was the end of it, but he's managed to mount a bit of a comeback.
Yeah, and a couple nail-biting wins to give himself a chance too. 5-4 over Oy for Steve. So, and Rodolfo, well, he's very well traveled. Same age as Steve, 47 years old. You don't really see a lot of his credentials there, but I can tell you he has been one of the solid players for as long as I can remember, all the players coming out of the Philippines, Nick.
Absolutely, and you'll see that just like Steve Davis, Rodolfo Luat has lost to Yang, who's been the pick of this particular group. But anyway, it's not about Rodolfo Luat, this one. It is about Steve Davis. But it is the man from the Philippines that will break first. The wing ball goes down, as does the 1. And that looks a pretty tasty break, doesn't it? All he needs is a good look at the blue 2, and of course, that's the 1 ball he can't see.
Little Samson, they call him. He's got a big break. He's probably all of about 90, 95 pounds soaking wet, is Rodolfo, but he can hit him. It's going to be the push out. Completely blocked off on a clear path to that blue 2.
Honestly, I think Steve was as stunned as anybody as Luat plays the push-out. When he came into the auditorium this morning and heard the news that everybody else had basically fallen by the wayside, and suddenly a chance had been handed to him, because he left this building late last night thinking, that's it. For the first time ever, I have failed to qualify for the round of 64, and yet, amazingly, fate has dealt him a kind hand.
And you know what's funny is I was talking to Steve earlier too, and never once did he mention a 7 that he missed against Yang last night at 4-4. And had that 7 gone in, we might not be having this conversation right now.
Yeah,
they'd both be in.
Yeah. But Steve is lucky that he's in a group where 3 will qualify. Just to reiterate, if Steve Davis wins here, he'll be through with 3. If he doesn't, the third man that's watching this with great interest somewhere is Phil Riley, the Australian, who will benefit if Davis loses here. He'll grab that last spot with 3 wins. And Steve has weighed up his options and said, I don't like the look of that, thank you very much.
But Davis isn't sitting down. He knows he'll be coming back to the table. It's just a question of how dark it's going to be.
Well, he can get at it, and I suppose the question is whether he can push that blue down to the bottom end of the table and keep the white behind the 3.
And the way he's looking at it now is cushion first, as we see Rodolfo Luat safety. Almost got that cue ball tucked in behind that pink 4 ball. He caught that much too thick, Nick. He was trying to catch that thin and bring the cue ball back down behind the colors. This is a clear-cut opportunity for Rodolfo. Never says too much, but he's very respected.
It's a bit like featherweight boxers coming out of Mexico City. If they do emerge onto the world stage, you know they must be good because there is such depth of talent. Anybody that can make a mark on the world stage coming out of the Philippines has been really battle hardened because there are so many hard matches, so many quality opponents. And with the pressure off, maybe the shots will just come. That could be bad news for Steve Davies.
Oh, this is a weak effort. Wanted that cue ball to travel at least another foot up the table. This is missable.
Boy, have we seen some misses on this table today. Has he got the legs? Yes.
Had to make a much better shot than he wanted, though, Nick, and the easiest of 9s. And it's little Sampson who opens his account here against the Nugget, takes the opening rack. It was his break, so he's held serve. It'll be Steve Davis to break when we come back. Don't miss it. We'll be back here at Kaohsiung.
Welcome back to Kaohsiung, Chinese Taipei. It's evening, but the streets, if anything, are busier than they are during the day. Francisco Bustamante has followed up a 5-0 win earlier today with a 4-1 win over your good buddy Jeff White. So 4-1 lead, should I say. I'm giving him the win earlier, but your buddy Jeff's got to do some work to come back there.
Yeah, Sean Putnam from America, he wasn't too happy. He lost a tough one to Elaine Martel earlier, but he'll be happy with that scoreline over a very seasoned player, Takanaka from Japan.
And Mike Davis has defeated Kang of Chinese Taipei in a Group 4 race to 5 over on Table 4. That means that Davis will qualify, and it also means that Efren Reyes is out. And on Group 1, Rico Dixon, a bit of a dogfight.
Yes, Rico has to win his last 2 matches. Yulang Govender from South Africa, he knew that was going to be a tough one.
Group 7, Kim of Korea leading Stepanov of Russia 4-2. Still in progress there.
Yeah, impressed by that young Stepanov. He's going to be a good one.
Well,
Back two.
Interesting, isn't it?
Steve
Francisco
Davis break.
Bustamante was
Train
not
one
facing
back,
elimination. He won an earlier match today, 5-0. And your buddy Jeff is on the backlash of that one as well, because he's 4-1 up. So it looks like Bustamante's found his A game just in time. Let's see if Steve can find his.
He's not going to be happy with this, Nick. The only saving grace for Steve is he broke so weakly, he's left them all cluttered at the bottom end of the table. And trust me, Steve can hit them a lot harder than that if he needs to.
The 8 and 9 welded together. 9 of them moved.
Yeah, that's what we call a cut break. He's trying to make the 1 in the side pocket when he plays that type of break. And the long 1 available, 2 no problem. Getting to the 3 is going to be a bit dodgy, but as you've already noted, Nick, that 8 and 9 are married.
Steve will just be hoping to get back to the table on this one, because he doesn't want to be too adrift and watch Luat break.
No, he can't afford to lose one against his break. Luat's just shown you roughly where he wants to be. Just another look to confirm it. Just past that side pocket to leave the red 3 into the left corner. And now the only problem ball is the 8. The 3 available. He's going to leave himself a nice angle on the pink 4 to get back up table for that orange 5.
Is there anything he can do to try and break up that partnership on the way?
Well, the good news is the 7 is near the 8, so he'll start thinking about that as soon as he looks at his angle on the 5. Start thinking about where to leave the cue ball in playing the 6 to give himself the angle on the 7 to try and get that 8 in the open. And Nick, that's all assuming that he doesn't leave himself a bank shot, but he does not want to be straight on this 5, and he's not going to be happy with that one. No angle with which to try and get that cue ball back to the center of the table here. That was a mistake from Rodolfo. He had lots of room to leave that cue ball.
Let's see if he can repair his the damage here.
These two played a couple of years ago in Cardiff, and Steve actually knocked Luat out of the tournament with one of the best shots I've ever seen on this world stage.
And who was commentating on that match? Jim White, I seem to recall.
Well, it was one of the best matches I've seen, Nick. But I'll never forget the shot Steve played where Luat had snookered him, and Steve went up table, contacted the 8, and cannoned the 9 in.
Wow.
Just a brilliant shot.
That's not a brilliant shot.
Well, he saw a lot of body movement, but he was really in no man's land on the 7 anyway as far as attacking the 8.
Well, Steve will be hoping that you in the commentary box for his match against Luat at the World Championship will be some kind of omen. And when you need a win as badly as Steve Davies does, you'll take any omen you can find. That helps. At least Steve's back at the table.
Wants to try and get that cue ball behind one of the colors. And the natural choice would be to get it back behind the brown 7, but the only danger there is he knows he's knocking that 6 up towards the top left corner. So he's got to play it a little differently. And now as he covered it.
Oh, that's what he's checking. Has it sneaked past the 7?
I think he's left the edge of the 6 sticking out. And Luat may be able to just raise the back end of that cue and play a massé shot to try and get this 6.
Just like that.
Yeah, not enough though.
Yep. And where are these balls going to settle? Steve Davies will say thank you very much for that. But can he separate that 8 and 9? That's the question.
If he's got the angle to be able to feather into that 8 and 9 and just let the cue ball float below the 9 for the 7, rest assured he'll open the 8 here. That was a let-off. Steve knows it. I think he felt like he should have really left Luat in the tall weeds in that last visit to the table. He's got the angle, Nick. He's going to open the 8 here for sure.
He's deliberating on this one, isn't he? This is the pot's not the problem. It's making sure you get the right kind of contact to break up the 8 and 9 and still see the 7. That's what he's got to make sure of. And Luat will definitely be sitting in his chair right now thinking, boy, I should not have let him in.
He's got another option here. He could stop the cue ball there, just kind of cheat the pocket slightly, leave the cue ball there. That's what he's looking at. He'd be using the rest, but he'd have the natural angle to bring the cue ball off the bottom cushion into the 8 and 9. No, I don't know. This was dangerous.
Yes, it's awfully close to the 8. Can he get the angle he needs on the 7? From that angle, it's not looking too clever.
Nick, you were a soothsayer there. Talking about clearing the 8 and leaving the 7 available. That was always going to be the danger. He took a lot of time playing that shot. He knew the risks.
A couple of millimeters, it would have worked. Instead, he's going to have to go to the bank.
And the banks are open. That was one of those culling all pockets type shots. And he's still going to need a good one on the 8. Needs some speed in this cue ball. This looks useful.
Well, we can never count our 9 balls until they've dropped. Not after that last match we saw, but this looks like Steve is going to level it up in a rack it looked like he'd lost control of. Oh, it only just went. Is this going to be his day after all? He rode his luck there. 1 apiece. That's Steve looking nervous. Well, he might.
That was an anxious moment on the 9. I guarantee you his heart skipped a beat there.
That's where Luat lost control. Davies was able to profit, even though he had to do it the hard way with this round the houses 7.
That 9 thought about staying on the playing surface, but thankfully for Davis, it didn't. 1-1 here on the main table.
Oh, well, there's the bad news. I was premature when I said he'd won against Jeff White, but he has now. Francisco Bustamante 5-2 to basically, I think, guarantee his participation.
Absolutely, Nick. I was going to say that does assure Francisco of a spot in the last 64.
But it was touch and go there, and Kim Wong-Di is wondering if he's going to get through or not, but Marco Lotanda and Konstantin Stepanov both have a chance to go past him, although Stepanov is losing at the moment. Important matches all over the place at the moment. None bigger as far as Steve Davies is concerned than this one right here. 1 apiece.
But Steve held serve, so he's still in with a big chance. Wing ball deposited. Rodolfo hasn't landed plumb on that one. What's more is he's got that 2 in a little bit of trouble, so...
Oh, this has turned into a really ugly looking rack, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was never going to be easy where that 2 was situated.
Davis snookered. Well, it's not an impossible one to get out of. But then the magical mystery tour begins. Steve considers his options. I have to say, Jim, for me, most of them look pretty bad. He's going to need to find something very special here. The contact, not the hard part. It's going to be the story of what happens after that. That interests us. Oh dear. Well, he didn't want that.
Yeah, that's no good. Given ball in hand, guaranteed that Rodolfo is going to be able to give himself an angle on this 1 to clear that 2. That was the last thing Steve wanted.
Well, the only good news for Davis is Luat's got an awful lot of work to do. This doesn't look like one of those nice easy run-outs from here, does it? Blue 2 has got to go somewhere after this.
Does it go past the black into the side pocket? If it doesn't...
Well, I don't think it does.
Well, maybe a bit of a let-off for Steve.
He wouldn't dare try a combination 2-8 there, would he?
Now, if this doesn't go, Nick, he's going to try and...
Top left, maybe?
I think he may play safe.
Oh, it did go.
Well,
So much for the deceptive camera angle.
yeah, overhead camera certainly led us to believe that wouldn't pass, but Rodolfo did not get that cue ball back into the middle of the table, because this 3 definitely doesn't pass the 9. And again, there's a lot of distance between the 3 and the 9 for him to try and go after a 3-9 combination. That would be way too risky. The scoreline 1-1, and it was Luat's serve.
Yep, heading for the hills once again. He had no choice. And I suppose it's Steve's misfortune to find that he's locked in battle with a man who can match him as a strategist. This guy isn't just a potter and a big breaker. This guy can play the Chow Fong Pang turning it into a bit of a procession. It didn't really matter, I think, in this one, who the
Right, and with that win from Chow Fong Pang, he beat Ben Davies 5-0. And in Group 5, that's your top 4 players: Dennis Apulio, Chow Fong Pang, Nick Vandenberg, and Radosław Babika.